Okay, guys, I think we're live.
What's up, Instagram?
Hello, Instagram world. So, a couple days ago, I felt like there've been a lot of people asking me questions lately, and I have not had time to get back to all of them. I've just haven't been very faithful to responding to comments and questions and direct messages, so I just thought I'm going to put this out there. If anybody has a question, let me know what it is, and we'll talk about it. So I thought I could just do one video, but then I got a lot of questions, and I thought, it looks like we're going to have to do a little series. So one of the most asked questions that you guys had was about the twins and their birth, and what did we think about finding out that we were pregnant with twins, and just all that good stuff. So I thought we would just go for it and kind of share the story about Remy and Royal and how they came about. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in there. I don't know for sure that we'll stop and answer every single one, but I could always address them at the end or later. So, okay, cool. So one of the questions that someone had was, I know you were grateful when you found out that you were having twins, but were you also terrified? What was your husband's initial reaction like? So I thought that Brian could just share a little bit about that, because it actually was a cool day when we found out that we were pregnant with the twins, and he has just a fun story to share about that.
Yeah, that was a crazy day for sure. So I don't know if all of you are aware of what our family situation was when we found out we were having twins. At that point in time, we had 3 foster boys, aged 6, 13, and 15 at the time. Maybe 12 and 15 at the time. Their ages keep changing as they grow up. And Judah, who was 2, and so we were drowning in people. Our 3-bedroom house was definitely full with the 4 crazy boys. And then we found out we were pregnant, and we definitely had that sort of like, what are we going to do moment, because at that point in time, none of the foster kids, there was no plan for reconciliation or reunification at that point. There was no really end in sight, and we also loved them, and that wasn't a bad thing, but we definitely thought, man, can one more person fit into this with our 3 foster boys and Judah? And we, after really just wrestling with it and praying with it, we did not have peace about ending foster care and just saying we're done.
When we decided to try for another biological child, we only had one foster son in our house. So that's an important piece of the puzzle, because we had Judah Cash and then our 6-year-old foster son, and our 2 older boys had gone back, so they weren't with us anymore. So that's when we kind of felt the space to be able to go ahead and add another biological child to our family, because we just had Judah Cash and the 1 foster son.
Yeah, and then of course the other 2 came back into our lives when things didn't work out with their dad, and so they went 3 and Judah, and then we found out we were pregnant, and so we knew it was going to be hard, but we really just said, okay, we feel like we can do this. It'll be hard, but another kid, that'll be 5 kids, and we'll just do it. 3 foster kids, 2 of our own, we'll make it happen. We'll figure it out, by God's grace. And that was just what our mindset was. We weren't willing. I mean, we just didn't know where those kids would end up, and so we just didn't have peace about just setting them free into the world. And then, the day came for the first ultrasound, and honestly, up until that point, the idea of twins had not even been on our radar at all. Mm-mm. But I was in Starbucks actually before the ultrasound. I'm a pastor. I was just doing some sermon preparation, just some sort of prayer and reflection, and I just had this thought just enter my head, and I think it was God, just this thought that just entered my head of, if we find out in just a few minutes at this ultrasound that we're having twins, then that's me telling you, that's God telling us that we're not meant to be foster parents for this next season. And because up until that point we had been really struggling, like, can we do everything, And that thought just entered my head, and then it was gone. It was gone. I carried on with my day. In fact, when I showed up for the ultrasound, I even totally forgot about that. And when the ultrasound was being taken, the furthest thing from my mind was that there was even the possibility of 2, humans being on that screen. And I didn't share that with Emily until later. But when the ultrasound tech said that there were 2 heartbeats and there were 2 of them, I mean, we both immediately just jaws dropped, freaked out.
We were weeping.
Terrified, scared for like a half second, but then the next second it was just this overwhelming feeling of blessing and God's favor and the sense of, I'm with you in this, and honestly we felt chosen. Like we felt like, wow, who are we to have been chosen for this privilege of these two lives, you know? And then I immediately remembered, you know, what I felt like God had sort of told me, that whole sense of we can do it, we can do everything, we can make it happen. It was God saying, no, you can't. And I'm going to make it really clear that you can't. There's going to be 2 babies. And so at that point, we didn't know what was going to happen to all the foster kids, but we knew that that chapter was at least going to be put on pause for a little while. And we just started praying that God would help us figure it out. And that's a whole nother amazing story of how all those foster kids ended up in good places. And you can actually read on Emily's blog about the adoption of our foster sons by another family in our church.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that was we love the boys so much, and you guys know, those of you who've been following for a while, just know how much we love them, and it's just with foster kids, and we'll do another one about foster care, but they just require a lot of time and energy and pouring into, and we knew with newborn twins and Judah Cash, there was no way we'd be able to give those boys what they needed, so it was really cool that God kind of showed us, like, okay, I'm going to give you guys a break from that and give you the twins, and then, you know, maybe when the twins are a little bit older, someone asked us too, like, do we still want to foster? Like, yeah, that's absolutely still on our hearts, but we just know right now we got to be faithful to take care of our little guys that we have.
Yeah, even at the time, I remember, you know, in the months there at the end, 13-year-old Landon, he already felt super like he wasn't getting enough from us, I think, because we had 6-year-old Orion and Judah Cash, and so Landon would be acting out because he wasn't getting enough attention and focus, and he really needs just constant pouring into, and so we knew if 2 more babies enter that picture, the boy just isn't going to, it wouldn't be fair to him even, and we just felt burdened by that as well.
So that was the day that we found out. I was literally weeping, sobbing, just out of sheer surprise and shock and happiness, really. And the doctor, it was kind of a bummer. She got to share this really cool news with us, but the way that she shared it was kind of like a bummer. Like, it wasn't that cool. Like, I felt like she had this opportunity set up for her to be able to tell this couple they're having twins, and she was just like, looks like there's 2 heartbeats. Excuse me, what did you say? Like, can you just repeat that again?
And then I feel like when we freaked out, she almost made us feel silly for having that big of an emotional reaction.
She was like,
what's
you need
wrong?
to calm down.
Do you not normally see 2 heartbeats on an ultrasound screen? Like, what's wrong with you? I see this all the time.
It was so funny. She was like, I need you to calm down. You're moving too much, and I can't get an accurate read of the heartbeats. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I just, give me some tissues, you know? Anyway, it was fine. So we drove home from, or we drove to get dinner. I remember we were driving to get dinner, and it was just, there was so much going through our heads. I was Googling all these things about twins, like I think one of the first things I Googled was like, pregnant twin mom, like, what do they look like how big does it really get, like how stretched out is my belly really gonna be. Brian immediately got on Amazon and started ordering books. Like, he's the book guy, so he's like, I've ordered a couple books about how to take care of twins and raise twins.
What to do when you're having 2.
Yep. So that came in a couple days. Thank you, Amazon Prime. And we just started gathering information and just dreaming about our family and like, what is this gonna look like? Is it gonna be boys? Is it gonna be girls? Like, what are we gonna do? At this point, we just thought we were gonna have 6 kids. We're like, what is gonna happen? Where are we gonna put everyone? Where are they gonna be? So that was a cool, I don't think we got great sleep that night. I know I didn't. I was still on my phone Googling statistics about twins, and it was still so early on in the pregnancy too that we didn't really want to share and tell a lot of people about it. So that was kind of the day that we found out. And then I actually started praying like that day, like, God, please let these babies stay head down inside my womb, because I had such a beautiful natural birth with Judah Cash, and that was something that I just really prayed that I would be able to do again. And I know with twins there's a big statistic about how many have to be born through C-section, and it all depends on how they're positioned and all this stuff. So I started doing all that research too, because I value that, and I really just enjoyed birth so much. So then what happened? So then life just kept happening.
I think you should probably skip to the whole natural birth thing.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things leading up to the birthing was maybe trying to hold it more loosely than even we did with Judah Cash.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, I remember when we were pregnant with Judah, and we watched The Business of Being Born, and we both were like, yeah, let's do it, no, no Pitocin, no nothing, like totally natural. But then just with the, pretty much every doctor was like, hey, that you're just gonna have to have some expectations of being more open-handed with how it goes with twins. And so, we prayed that it would go that direction, but just to be okay with it if it didn't.
Yeah, especially because
the baby's actually crying. So
okay.
I'll bow
especially
out.
because where we live, it's like an interesting. We kind of live in a small town, so there aren't a lot of options around here for midwives. Actually, when I found out I was pregnant with the twins, I called one that was a couple of hours away, and found out about doing a home birth. And with one, they could do that, but then when I found out that I was going to have twins, I called them back to tell them, and they're like, that's really awesome, but we don't do home births for twins. So that kind of hope got dashed immediately, but I was like, all right, that's okay. I'm going to keep going just as natural as I can and see what happens with that. So I just had to go. There's only 2 really doctors in our town that you can go to, and so I kept going to the same doctor I'd gone to with Judah. It's a series of doctors. I think there's like 6 of them, and you don't really know which one's going to deliver. That's just the way they do their practice. And it's unfortunate, and I wish it wasn't that way, but it's okay. It is what it is. And so I met with each doctor during the pregnancy and kind of just told them my hopes and my dreams and my birth plan and what I wanted to do, and how I was praying every day that the boys would stay head down, which, to back up a little bit, the way that we found out about the boys is funny. So with Judah Cash, we didn't find out his gender before he was born. We waited to be surprised, and it was so much fun. I love doing it. But with the twins, it was like, okay, we've already got enough big surprise. The day we went in and got that ultrasound and found out there were 2 was enough surprise. Like, let's find out their genders. Brian talked me into it, actually. And so we went to an ultrasound, and around 15 weeks, I think, we had a doctor tell us that there was a 50% chance that one was a girl and a 90% chance the other was a girl. So we thought we were having 2 girls for a whole month. I mean, we picked out names, we were ready to go. It was like just dreaming about these 2 girls. It was so funny. Then we went to a 20-week ultrasound, and another technician confirmed that they were both boys. So that was really fun getting to share that news. And I still think there might be a little girl for our family at some point. I don't know what that will look like or how she'll come to us, but I pray for her and think about her, and we'll see if that ever happens. But when I was meeting with each doctor, I would just tell them my hopes and my dreams, and they would always just be like, okay, all right, that sounds great, honey. I'm glad that you want to do that. Like, let's just keep seeing what happens. And so the pregnancy was going really well. I was tired, like I was exhausted, but I loved it. I loved being pregnant. It was really fun. Even with the twin pregnancy, I am one of those kind of annoying people who has good pregnancy. So it wasn't terrible. It got uncomfortable towards the end. Around 34 weeks is when I really started to have some contractions, and I actually thought the babies might be coming. I even reached out to a couple of my twin mom friends from Instagram and said, like, oh my goodness, I think they're coming early. What do I do? I was up for one night at 34 weeks. I was up just laboring in the bathroom like all night. I started timing my contractions. I thought it was happening. But I eventually got myself back to sleep and calmed myself back down. So that was a little scary, and just knowing that twins come early, I didn't exercise as long as I did with Judah. I was like out running 2 days before he was born. But with the twins, I really tried to take it easy, and I wasn't on any kind of bed rest, but I just tried to really like relax and take it easy and let them stay in as long as they could, so that they would be healthy and big and strong, and they wouldn't have to spend any time in the NICU. So 34 weeks, a lot of contractions, but I never got checked to see if I was dilated at all. I had appointments, but I just declined getting checked. I didn't really want them to check because I know that can kind of stir things up and get things going, and I just wanted them to stay in as long as they could. And a lot of my all the doctors said, if you haven't had them by 38 weeks, we're going to induce you. So I was having a lot of anxiety about that because I didn't want to be induced. I really, really didn't want to be induced. And that's one of the things that Brian was talking about. I had to just like hold loosely, because when they kept saying that, my heart just kept saying no. No, I want them to come when they're ready to come. And there's a lot of research that can be done. And I just want to put out there that like I this is what happened for our kids, but I know that natural birth isn't an option for everybody, especially for a lot of twin moms. So there's no judgment from me about people who have C-sections or epidurals or Pitocin or anything like that. Honestly, I think people have to do what's best for them. This is just something that I'm personally passionate about. So I love to talk about it, and I love to share about it. So that's why I'm telling you guys. And so right around, and every ultrasound, babies are head down, both babies. I'm like, stay there, boys. Like, you're so obedient. You love your mom already. Like, this is so awesome. And so I went in for a check around 36 weeks, I think it was, and my blood pressure was high, which it had been consistently normal the entire pregnancy. And so that's something they worry about when your blood pressure is high, is that you might have preeclampsia, and that can be really dangerous for you as the mom and for the babies. And so I had this high blood pressure, but I thought that maybe it was just because I was a little anxious about going into my appointment and having to set a date for the epidural. I was going to try to like fight the doctors and not set a date. So I was nervous. And so I went in, and she's like, your blood pressure's high. And I was like, I know why, because I'm nervous about being here, and I don't want to be induced. And she's like, it's okay, let's just try to get it back down. So I was able to get my blood pressure back down, and they actually sent me to the hospital to be monitored. They just get so worried with twins. So they sent me to the hospital to be monitored for like half of a day, but I was able to get my blood pressure low enough consistently that they sent me home, and they just wanted to do like urine samples for 24 hours to find out if the protein was high in my urine, and if it was high, that would be a sign of preeclampsia, and I would have to be induced. So I was just so thankful I got to come home from the hospital that night, and I got to, we had an awesome day at church on Sunday, just like worshiping God, and I remember just like singing and praying and just telling God, like, thank you so much, you know, for my health and for my babies, and just like kind of giving their birth to Him at that point, because I had been holding on really tightly to the natural birth thing. And so I just, at that point, I finally just let go and said, like, God, however these babies get here, like forgive me for making this about me and my natural birth experience. Like, just let my babies please be healthy, like, and let's just do this. So I got a call on Monday. That was Sunday. I got a call on Monday morning that my protein levels were really high in my urine, and so it was signs of preeclampsia. So at that point, it was no question. It was like, come in, you're getting induced. And at this point, I was 37 weeks and 2 days, and I was so bummed because I felt great. I actually, around 34, 35 weeks, things were hard, and I was really uncomfortable, but at this point, I felt awesome. I was like walking around, running around with Judah Cash, like playing outside with him. I had this burst of energy. I did not feel bad at all. And from what I understood with preeclampsia, it was like you felt sick, you were swollen. I wasn't any of those things. I felt great. So I got the call, and they said, you need to come to the hospital right now. So I was like, oh man. So we took our time, we got things together, which was totally different than Judah Cash's birth, like laboring at home and then getting there and like having him so quickly. But this time it was like, all right, well, I guess I can like put some makeup on before I go have my baby. Like, this is so weird. But it was really chill. We got Judah Cash set up with my mom, and then we went to the hospital, and they wanted to put me in a wheelchair to take me to my room, and I was like, I'm so sorry, but no, I actually really need to get some contractions going, so please let me just finish this out myself. I can walk. They were like, no, you need to get in this wheelchair. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I really need like things to start happening. I want to go into labor. I had started using clary sage oil that I got to just kind of get things going. I had some raspberry leaf tea. I was drinking that. I was like, okay, if they're gonna induce me, I want my body to be as ready as possible. So we got up to my room. I won the battle, by the way. I got to walk up there, and then my doula came. My amazing doula. I love her so much. She was there for Judah's birth and for the twins' birth. And so I get up to my room, and I'm like feeling great. I'm doing squats. I'm trying to like be active so that maybe these babies will like come on their own. Like, maybe there's some chance. And remember, at this point, I still haven't been checked, so I don't know if I'm dilated at all. I just kind of assumed I wasn't because I felt so great and I wasn't really having a lot of contractions. So the nurse comes in. I'm like, all right, please tell me the most natural way we can do this induction, because I just want you to know, like, I don't want to be doing this. I'm only here because you're telling me it's the best thing for me and the babies. And so she was like, okay, well, she gave me some options. I was like, okay. She's like, but first we're just going to check, and we're going to see if you are dilated at all. So she checks me, and she gets this look on her face, and she's like, and then she's like, calls the doctor in, I need you to check because I just checked and what I got can't be right. She's like, I think she's 6 to 7 centimeters dilated. So the doctor checks, and she's like, oh, wow, she is 6 to 7 centimeters dilated. What in the world? How am I walking around doing squats, not feeling any like major contractions or anything at this point? I was so happy. I literally just started weeping because I knew that my body was getting ready on its own, and I just felt like God was so good to let that happen. So my doula just came over and was comforting me, and it was like, okay, like, oh, like this is happening, like this is really happening, and maybe without any kind of, induction. So they let me labor for a little bit on my own. I actually have my notes here that my doula wrote down for me, so I have like the timeline. So I got there, I called, 11 to 45, I got at the hospital, and I was 6 to 7 centimeters dilated. I was 100% effaced, and I had to get a bag of antibiotics put in. I was just having really mild contractions, not anything different than I'd been even having on Sunday. And then at 2 o'clock, the baby's heart rate looked good, and I was eating, and she was just helping me kind of like labor through some mild contractions at this point. I had to get a second dose of antibiotics at 3:10, and the doctor then broke my water at 3:40, which I was kind of bummed about. I didn't want to have my water broken, but I was like, man, I guess that will still be my body, like, getting things going, so that'll be cool. So at 3:40, she did that, and I was 8 centimeters dilated by 4:30. So once I got there, I was having heavier contractions, and it was so cool. I mean, it was actually really beautiful. The room I was in, I was able to bring in my essential oil diffuser, and Brian had essential oil blends for me, like all my favorites. He was rubbing them on me, rubbing them on my feet. The whole room smelled like just amazing. I think we had clary sage and lavender blend going at that time, and then another like spruce blend as well. And then the thing that I knew was coming and that I was really nervous about, and I forgot to share this at the beginning, but not only do you have to have your babies in the hospital when you're having twins, but you actually have to deliver them in an operating room, just in case there's something that goes wrong at the last minute, and you don't know like what's going to happen. So they're monitoring the baby's heart rates, and I know that like and I asked, can I labor until 10 centimeters in a room before you move me? So I had the ball and everything, and they were letting me be in this room, but it was like, once you hit 10, like, we've got to get you out of here. And it wasn't like, we're just going to take you to the next room. It was a labyrinth. Like, we have to go down this hall, to the left, around, all while I'm like in transition. And if you are a mom who has labored naturally, you know what that's like. But I can just tell you guys that this labor was so different than it was, and my husband can attest to this because he was by my side, and so was my doula for both of them. I was so much more calm this time. It was amazing. I just even laboring, it happened a lot more quickly, but I was able to just stay so much more calm, and I really think that the essential oils I was using had a lot to do with that. And by the time I got to 10 centimeters, I wasn't even... Babe, was I screaming? I don't think I was even screaming. It was like this weird, quiet, like peaceful still had just come over my face, and I would just close my eyes to get through each wave that would come. And it was so cool. So 10 centimeters comes, and they're like, all right, we've got to get her to that room. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is happening. So we leave our peaceful Zen room where my husband's playing music. What were we listening to? Do you remember? We've got the oils going.
Or something, I don't know.
Sufjan Stevens playing in the background. My doula's just like wiping my head with warm rags, essential oils. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, get her out of here. We're going to the operating room. And I was like, I cannot let this faze me. I've got to stay in my zone. I've got to stay calm. And I remember that I had seen a video circulating around Facebook about, and it was this woman birthing in a tub. And I know a lot of hospitals even have birthing tubs, but not our one. That's okay. I'm not bitter about that at all. But she was at home birthing her baby in her tub, and I watched this video of her, and she just stayed completely calm the whole time. And this baby just pops out, and she brings him up, and she's just like so chill. And I remember just thinking about that video while I was at the 10 centimeters, and I was just praying, and my husband and Jarita were just praying over me, and I just knew, like, this is happening, and it's going to be beautiful. It's coming. And so I stayed calm even through the labyrinth little adventure down to the operating room, which I was nervous about, but I got down there, and I mean, they rolled me into this room, and there were at least 10 people like standing in this room just waiting. So we went from like the zen, chill, calm room to like 10 people that are all like suited up. Her name is Jarita, not Dorito. Judah Cash does call her Dorito though. That's funny. I just happened to see that comment. And so I get into the room, the lights are bright, and they have like this tiny table that they're going to put me onto to deliver these babies, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is happening. Oh, and I'm also going to have to like be moved from the bed I'm on onto this table. It was like a steel table with like a cloth over it. And so we got in there, and I was like, no, I'm not getting on that table. I'm too calm right now. I feel too good. Like, let me just have them right here. Both heads are down. Heart rates are good. Let's just do this thing. And the doctor's like, I'm sorry, we've got to put you on the table. I'm like, oh my goodness, here we go. So they lift me onto the table, 10 centimeters. Babies are coming. I'm feeling just urges and rushes and feeling like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to do this? I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm feeling everything. I'm not on any pain medication. There's nothing. It's just me and these babies and these 10 people in this room, which it was cool that they let my doula come into that room with me, which I actually really insisted on. I was like, I can't do this thing without her. Like, I need her there. Something about her presence was just so calming and so relaxing for me. I just kept saying, talk to me, Jarita, talk to me. Like, tell me I'm doing okay. Tell me what's happening in the room. Like, just her voice was really calming to me. And of course I had Brian there as well. So, and my dream team. And so while I'm trying to get these babies out, I didn't ever feel a really strong urge to push, which was annoying for me. I never got it with Judah either, but it was like, it was time, and you need to make this happen. So, lifted onto the table at 10 centimeters. Yeah, that was nuts. I did not stay calm during that moment. That was when a little bit of the calmness went away. But we got onto the table. We're on the table now, and it was just so bright in there. I'm like, can you guys turn the lights down? And I could just remember like the 10 people that were in the room. I guess they all had to be there in case I had to go into a C-section unexpectedly. They were just chattering. Like, I could hear them talking about like their lunch or something, and I was like, I don't want to be mean, but can you guys please be quiet? And so the doctor kind of like shushed everybody in there, because I just really wanted to stay focused, and I was nervous about like getting these babies out, but I needed to be able to focus. So baby A, which was Remy, his head was ready to come out, and the doctor is saying like, Emily, it's time. And I'm still not getting strong urges, but I'm like, all right, we got to do this. And so I was just reading on this. This is cool. I think it was only 4 to 5 pushing contractions, and Remy was out. So we knew the whole time that Remy was going to be baby A. We knew he was A. We chose that name for him. And so he... and I had asked specifically, like, when the babies are born, if they're healthy, can they come right onto my chest? I know we're going to be in an operating room, but I just want them on me. That's really important to me. So sure enough, like, he's born. It wasn't as bad as with Judah Cash. I guess once you've already had one, it's not as hard to have 2 or 3. And so he comes out, and he's on my chest, and I am just feeling so much relief and so much happiness, and the happy mom hormones are rushing to my brain, and I'm feeling like I'm having a high right now. And then I remember, like, oh my gosh, there's another one in there. Like, I have to do this again. Like, this is happening. This is happening again. The coolest thing ever is that I got to keep Remy on my chest while Royal was born. It was so amazing. It was so beautiful. And he stayed so calm and so chill, just like nestled up onto me. And I was talking to him, and I was thanking God for him, and I was weeping, and just telling him that he was my boy and that we had to get his brother out now. I was like, it's time. We've got to do it. We got to get your brother out. And I didn't know how long it was going to be in between. I had been reading a bunch of just natural birth stories about twins, and I read anything from like, it could be 5 minutes to it could be 10 minutes to it could be like hours. And so I was like, oh, I hope we're not here for too long. This could be rough. But I just felt so thankful to have my boy with me, to have Remy with me. But there was this other part of me that was like, man, like we've got to get him out too. And this is still serious. Like they're not both out and they're not both safe yet. So I felt it was this kind of bittersweet moment where I was like, I've got my boy, this is the sweet, but the bitterness is coming of the second one coming out, and that's not going to feel good, and he's not here yet, so I don't know that he's safe, and I don't know that he's 100% healthy, so let's get him out, and then we can really just rejoice. And so 15 minutes between their births, and so I'm having some more contractions with Remy, which Brian got to cut Remy's cord, which is really cool, and Remy's just straight chilling here, and then out comes Royal, except instead of his head coming out first, his fist came out first, and I did not know what was happening. Nobody mentioned this to me. I think they didn't want to freak me out, so it did not feel the same as with Remy though, and I knew that. I was like, hold on, this feels different. What is going on? And the doctor just said, it's okay, don't push yet. I'll tell you when to push again. So she actually was pushing his hand back in. Like he came out with his fist up. She was pushing his hand back in and told me again to push with the next contraction. I pushed again. Little booger came out with his hand up again. So here he comes again, fist up in the air. And she's like, okay, Emily. And at this point, they're monitoring his heart rate. And if it starts to drop, they're like going in for a C-section. And I know this in the back of my mind, so I'm like, no, we're not going there. We're not. I've got one already. We've got to get two out here. Let's do this. So she puts his hand back in, and I guess that she was guiding his head out with her hands. So she had her hands on either side of his head, and then she just looked at me and said, like, Emily, you need to push now, like very firmly. And I still wasn't having like big urges to push, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna do what I know how to do and get this baby out of here. So I pushed him out, and he came out, and so apparently he wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't that he wasn't breathing right away, was it, babe? I wasn't really there, but he just wasn't as responsive, I think, as Remy was right away, because and I think they were worried about his heart rate, so they didn't put him right onto my chest. They quickly snipped his cord and took him over to, I think they just suctioned him out and made sure that he was breathing on his own okay, which he was, and it was like a matter of, I don't even think it was a couple minutes before he was on my chest as well. So I got to have both boys there on me in this operating room with all these people watching. I mean, it was like, and I think that I had actually one of the nurses I've kind of become friends with, she told me that they do not get to experience that very often. I think she said that she'd been working at the hospital for 7 years and she's never seen a natural twin birth before. So it was kind of like the whisper around like the hospital was like, this girl's doing it, she's doing a natural twin birth, what's happening? It was just such a privilege to be able to do that. So, and the other really cool thing is that when we went, there were no other women having babies at that time on the floor that we were on. Like, so everybody's attention was on us. Like every nurse, the doctor, it wasn't like running back and forth, we'll be right back. Like it was literally like everybody was in on this and like pushing for us and rooting for us. And so it was a really cool experience. Both boys, I let them just kind of like enjoy each other and enjoy being on me for just a couple minutes while I was getting stitched up. I had a little bit of tearing, but honestly, it just didn't even like matter at that point. I was just so happy to have my boys. And the coolest thing is that they latched like immediately. So within 30 minutes of being born, both boys were on me and latched and like eating. It was so beautiful. I will never forget the feeling of, as I wondered like, what's it going to be like to have two? And there they both were, just like going for it already. I was so proud of them, and I was just so happy. So they wheeled us back to a recovery room, and just got to spend time with them, holding them, loving them, looking at them. And we didn't know, so the kind of twins that there are, they're called die-die twins. So that means they have their own sac and their own placenta, and 30% of the time those kind of twins can be identical twins if they're both the same gender. So since we had two boys that were die-die, there was a chance that they could have been identical. We weren't sure, and they said you won't know until they're born. So, but once they were born, I knew like immediately that they weren't identical because they looked so different, and it was so beautiful to be able to see them side by side, and just to watch them like be all over each other, and it was so cool. So we actually had a really great night. I mean, not great. I mean, it was great because they were born, but we were awake all night. It was like we were trying to figure out if their personalities are still the same as they were that first night. I think Remy cried a lot, and Royal just ate a lot.
No, it was other way around. We thought Royal was the bad one.
We thought Royal was going to be the more needy one.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We thought Remy was the chill one, but it turns out they switched. But Royal, they were both really great eaters. I mean, they both were just going for it. Like when it was time to eat, they would both just get on and go for it. I didn't have to like work with a lactation consultant to figure out anything with their latch or anything like that. So it was cool, and even just the doctor, the pediatrician that was on, kind of recommended that I just use formula to supplement them, but I just felt really confident about how much they were eating and how they were eating and how healthy they were. Remy was 5 pounds and Royal was 6 pounds. Remy was 5'2" and Royal was 6 pounds even, which is really good for twins and for 37-week-old twins. So it was such a cool moment to just share our family. And so he recommended that I supplement, but I didn't. I just breastfed them. And so then the next night is when Royal had to go to the NICU because his platelet count was down. So he seemed really healthy, but he had a lot of red dots on him. And so to figure out what was wrong, they did some tests, and they found out that his platelet count was low, like much lower than it should have been. So it was definitely something to be worried about, and he would have had to have a transfusion if they didn't go up. So we had to go to the NICU because our hospital didn't have one, so we had to drive a couple hours. Again, we live in a small town. We had to go a couple hours to the NICU, and we were really worried for a little bit that we weren't going to be able to bring Remy with us because he was only 5 pounds, and he lost a little bit of weight that first 24 hours. But I just told the doctor, like, I want my family to be together. Like, there's no way I can leave a boy in this hospital if the only reason is that his weight isn't what you want it to be. Like, he's eating great. I'm feeling really confident about breastfeeding both of them. Like, please, can we just bring him with us? So we went to the NICU. Royal had to get taken in an ambulance, but we followed behind with Remy in the car with us. They discharged him and just said, like, keep an eye on his weight, make sure you're feeding him, weigh him while you're there, make sure that he's getting enough. And he did great. He only has ever just gained weight. And Royal, at the hospital, he did really well there actually, and all they did was check his blood count, his platelet count every few hours, and eventually it got to the point where they were confident that it would be okay and he would be okay and they wouldn't have to do a transfusion. So that was really great. We were so thankful for that. But while we were at the NICU, so many of you sent amazing messages of encouragement to us, and we had a lady like show up who was one of my friend's moms who didn't even know us and found us in the parking lot and gave us money for our hotel room, which was such a blessing. And then we had another friend give us money for lunch, and like this lady, she even brought us strawberries from a plant stand. It was just such a cool, we could just see these little God moments like mixed in with just the exhaustion and the worry that we were experiencing over Royal. And just, I mean, even just for me, going from like I was gonna have one more night in the hospital where I would be taken care of, to just be thrown into life. Like, here's your hotel room, here's this hospital where you can't bring I couldn't bring Remy back in where Royal was, so they had to be separated, and Brian and I had to take turns in the waiting room holding Remy while the other one went to go hold Royal. So for all you NICU mamas out there, so much love to you and so much support to you, because I know how hard that is. We only had to do it for 2 nights, but I can't even imagine the pain of doing that for weeks or months. I know so many of you have had that experience, so I salute you. Okay, so that's pretty much their birth story. I did have some people asking me about how I breastfeed them, so if you want to peace out from here, you totally can, because you might not find this interesting. I think a lot more people are probably interested in their birth story than in how I feed them. But I think there were like 5 questions saying like, how do you breastfeed twins? How do you make it happen? And so, again, I do just feel really thankful that they both had that great latch right away, because I was able to, I'm just going to check my phone battery. I was able to breastfeed them, and Royal did have to get some formula while he was in the hospital, because there was no way that I could leave Remy at night and then go feed Royal. Like that was something I had to just kind of hold loosely, because I wanted to be there, and I wanted to be there for every single feed, but I was so tired, and I knew I would lose it. And I was also worried that my milk supply wouldn't be good if I didn't get any rest at all, and I knew I'd get no rest going between hospital and our hotel room in the middle of the night. So I would go in and feed him like during the day, and I would do a night feed, but overnight I wasn't going to the hospital. So he got some formula there, and he got stronger and bigger, and that was great. He was fine, but I was a little worried he would maybe struggle going back and forth, but he didn't struggle at all. He did great, even with going from bottle back to breast. He did really good. So yeah, and then I'm trying to remember what the questions were. Let me pull up my computer. So breastfeeding them was another thing I wanted to hold loosely. I really wanted to be able to exclusively breastfeed both of them, but I was like, if one is struggling and is not working out, I'm not gonna like die on that hill. Like, I will just formula feed one if I have to, or pump and feed that one. But fortunately, I have been able to breastfeed both of them. So let's see. What positions? So I actually need to just direct message you, because I have a picture of me feeding them the other day, but I don't have it on my phone right now. So I just hold them like, actually, I kind of like lean back and let them like lay on me and eat that way. It seems to work really well. So they're kind of like facing each other, but then their bodies are facing each other, but then their heads are facing me, and they are so cute when they're eating. They like grab each other's hands and hold hands. It's the cutest thing ever. They also try to like scratch each other in the face, which is not cute, but they like to be holding on to something. So if I'm feeding them individually, which I do sometimes, if I really want to make sure they're getting, sometimes I'll start with both of them on and then finish them up individually, so I can make sure they're getting enough each time. But when they're on together, it's so cute, because sometimes they just stop and look at each other and they're holding hands, and it is pretty much the cutest thing you've ever seen in your life. And so let's see. That's the position. That's actually what I do every time. I started off with one of those big pillows, and I was doing like the football hold. Not the pillows. What is that thing called? The breast friend. I had the My Breast Friend at first, like the twin mom one, like the deluxe, and that was great for the first few weeks. But eventually, I got tired of whipping that thing off and on in the middle of the night, and I was like, I gotta figure another way to do this where I don't have to like have such a setup. Like, I want to be able to just grab them and feed them. So now I pretty much just like hold them and feed them, and it works out great. Sometimes I put pillows underneath my arms to get support, but it's not like a really crazy thing. Someone asked if I feed them while I'm out. Yes, I do. We before the twins were born, we caved in and bought a minivan, and it's actually been the best thing ever, because I never thought I would say that about a minivan, but we are loving it, because I can sit in the back seat and feed both babies at the same time. I have like the room to do that. And Judah Cash it has a DVD player, and the kid can sit and like watch a show while I feed the babies. So if I'm out and about and I need to feed them all, that's how that happens. And yeah, just milk production. I think what the most important thing is just to keep putting them on when they're hungry. Like, just keep putting them on. I do have them on a schedule where they're both like, they eat and then they sleep and then they play. No, is that right? Yeah, eat, sleep, play. Sorry, mom brain. Eat, play, sleep. That's what it is. They eat first when they wake up, and then they play for a period of time, and then I put them down for a nap. And they just do that same thing all day long until nighttime. And then, again, they wake up, they eat, and then they play, and then they sleep all day again. And at nighttime, man, they're like still waking up 1 to 2 times a night, and I don't really know how to get them to sleep through the night. So it just hasn't happened yet. Judah Cash was sleeping through the night at like 8 weeks. But with them, I'm just so worried they're not getting enough milk that I'm like, oh, babies, like, it's okay, I'll just feed you. And then I put them back down, and they go right back down. Like, if they wake up in the night, they just eat and get right back down. So I haven't really stressed out about that a lot. I know I've had a couple people ask me, like, how do you get them to sleep through the night? How are you, they're not. It's okay. They do stretches. They do longer stretches. They kind of take, like, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So I know they'll get there eventually. I'm just not stressing out about it. And then, let's see, oh yeah, the sleeping through the night, they're not. I think that's everything. Oh, someone did ask what was in my delivery bag. I need to just do a post about that, because there are some cool things, but I off the top of my head, I don't know the names of all of them, so I'll work on a post about that. Guys, I'm sorry this was so long. If any of you stayed for the whole thing, you are a trooper, and I commend you. I don't know that I could have stayed on this long. And the bad thing is that my phone, the battery was dying, so I turned the brightness all the way down, so I can't even really see my screen right now. I can, like, barely see it. So I can see that you guys are commenting, and I want to go back and read all of these and answer your questions, and hopefully I can. But I'm thinking that the next post that I'm going to do is about foster care. So if any of you are interested in that and want to learn more about that, we will do it, and we'll make it happen. Brian's going to be in that one with me too, because I think it's important for you guys to hear how we did it together. It was not just me being a foster mom, it was us being a foster family. So I want to talk about that. So, all right, lots of love to all of you, and I'll see you again soon. I don't know, I'm thinking I'll probably try to do the foster care one soon, like in the next couple days or the next week. So I'll do a post so that you know. Lots of love to you guys. Shoot me a DM if you have any questions about the stuff I talked about. It's not edited, so I don't even know what all just happened or came out of my mouth, but that's what I would have told you if I was sitting across from you having coffee and you asked me what the twins' story was. That was it. All right, lots of love. Bye-bye, guys.